In the Pathfinder campaign I'll be playing in next month, my character is Peligro Takoizu, a Totori monk brawler. He's a luchador. I'm not a DM or anything, but I like to make stuff, so I thought it'd be cool to make a wrestling ring that potentially could be used in the game or just as a cool display piece. I'll be taking heavy inspiration from the temple from the show Lucha Underground. I cannot stress how much I love and miss that show. The whole series is up for free right now on Tubi TV. I suggest, just check the whole thing out. I even like season 4. A standard wrestling ring is 20 feet by 20 feet, and that works out great for tabletop because a 1-inch square equals 5 feet. So we'll have a 4-inch by 4-inch square, and I'm just going to cut that out of 1/2-inch pink XPS foam. For the ring post, I'm going to use some square wood dowel. I'm using the smallest dowel I can get away with because it's going to cut into those corner squares, but I still want to have enough room to place a miniature. The dowels are cut at 2 inches, and I make sure to mark off the 1/2 inch which will be hidden by the ring. Then I take the remaining 1.5 inches of the post and kind of guess where I want to make room for ropes. I go with about 1/8 of an inch from the top and bottom, and then just kind of split the difference for the middle rope. I carefully drill a 1/16 of an inch hole in neighboring sides of each post so that they meet in the middle. This way I can thread the rope through instead of trying to make some sort of weird eye bolt turnbuckle thing that would take even more space away from those corner squares. I cut a notch out in each corner square, and then I hot glue the posts in place. I was worried that the ring posts might tear away from the foam, so I kind of went overkill and wrapped the whole thing in masking tape. The tape's about 1 inch wide, and just looking at it that way, I realized that the ring looked better at 1 inch tall instead of 1/2 inch. So I cut another 1/2 inch 4x4 square. I carved out holes to hot glue in some pennies to add a bit of weight to the ring. Then I hot glued both of those squares together. Instead of carving grid lines into the ring, I decided I would put a 2-inch by 2-inch design in the center of the ring. That way I could gauge kind of where each square was without having to put a grid down. So in Procreate for the iPad, I just drew up kind of a generic wrestler promotion design with some luchador masks, a kind of rudimentary championship belt design, and then, because I was running out of ideas, the bottom left square represents fortune. You've got your chest with all sorts of coins and, stuff like that around it. And the bottom right square would represent defeat, which I didn't really know how you could illustrate that, so I drew a skeleton and coffin, death. So it's kind of the spoils of victory and then the agony of defeat. And then I printed the design in scale to the ring on a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of printer paper, inkjet style. And for the ring, I added a 1-inch apron to each side that would wrap down onto the side of the ring when I glued it down. I did have to cut out a notch for each ring post because that cuts into the 4x4 design. So I just carefully cut those out. Then I applied matte Mod Podge to the ring, just painted it on, and applied the paper to the ring. I guess I forgot to record painting the ring post black, but I did that before applying the paper design to the mat. I ended up using fishing line for the ring ropes. It seemed like a pretty sturdy option while not having to use something bigger and bulkier like actual string. So I thread the string through the posts, I pull it as tight as I can, and then apply super glue and lock that in with super glue accelerator. And I very carefully cut away the excess bits of the string to make sure I don't cut the actual ring ropes. The super glue kind of frosted up, so I'll have to go over that again with another coat of black paint. So this is where I start to get kind of frustrated with this build. I didn't really like how clean the mat looked. I wanted it to look grungier, kind of to replicate the Lucha Underground style of ring. So I applied different brown washes to it, but I didn't apply the matte Mod Podge to the top of the design. So like any inkjet printer paper does, the ink started to run. I went ahead and painted the apron and the posts and the ropes all black again. but I still didn't like the way the mat looked. In all honesty, it was probably fine, but I printed off another one of the designs and Mod Podged it on top of the existing one, and I ran into all sorts of trouble with this and made it look definitely worse. So I did what I should have done in the first place. I printed the design off one last time with the texture already on it, and then just reapplied it with Mod Podge and called it good. For the turnbuckle pads, I went with a more Japanese style, or maybe like, I guess, a boxing style that goes the full length of the turnbuckle, because making 3 individual ones for each corner and then just trying to apply them with like tweezers or something just seemed like too much work. I literally just cut off a scrap of Dollar Tree craft foam and it fit the corner pretty well, so I just cut 3 more and then sanded them down with an emery board. I glued them in place with wood glue instead of like hot glue, because I was worried the hot glue might warp or even damage the fishing line ring ropes. I also wanted to make some barricades for ringside, so I initially started drawing them out on paper, but decided it'd be a lot easier just to build them in Adobe Illustrator. I made them 3/4 of an inch tall and then 4 inches wide, and then I made a couple that were 2 inches wide. Those got hot glued to popsicle sticks, and then I base coated them in the Black Magic Craft Special, and then they got a dry brush of gunmetal and then a lighter silver. I also made some tables, which were made by gluing 10 of these wooden sticks, which are basically just matchsticks without the match. And I also cut down some wider popsicle sticks down to a 2-inch section. Then I glued some 1/2-inch wooden dowels to the bottom, and then added another one of those wooden matchsticks to the bottom to help line up the dowels and keep them somewhat plumb, I guess. I base coated them with a honey brown and then hit them with a brown wash. And then I glued a thin strip of paper that was painted gunmetal around the edges to act as banding. I made a bunch of them because they're pretty reusable for all sorts of stuff. I also made some benches, which is just 2 skinny sticks glued together, and then I cut them so I could get a 3-inch bench and a 2-inch bench out of one set of sticks. And then I glued 3 cut-off pieces of popsicle stick to each side to act as legs. I cut them to roughly a 1/2 inch, but when they're on the table you won't see the bottom of them anyways, so it's just something to prop them up off the table. So this is what the wrestling ring looks like finished. I did go back and add a couple brown washes to the mat just to make it less printer paper looking, and I set up the barricades so that there would be a 10-foot clearance around the entire ring, plus you've got the wide open aisleway. I put some tables in the corners. Those could be like a timekeeper's desk, or somebody could be put through them. I'm not sure the mechanics of a game where you could do that, but it could be cool. And then I threw all of my HeroClix converted minis in the crowd in front of the benches. I'm not too sure about the seating arrangement in this venue, but that's what I came up with. This was my first tabletop terrain video I've done. I'm not sure how many of these I'll do, but this seemed particularly up my alley because it was a wrestling related thing, which in addition to monsters, I'm a huge fan of wrestling. So if you want to see more monster related stuff, check out some of the other videos on my channel, maybe subscribe if you like what you see. Also, feel free to let me know what you thought of this video. If you have suggestions for future things you'd like to see me build or anything like that, drop a line. And if you picked up anything useful or were somewhat entertained by this video, hit that like button with a flying crossbody. Alright, stay safe and I'll catch you later.